Why don't we start her up then right now? So, my name is Oscar Anthony Udaval, and I'm a realtor with eXp Real Estate. And I have my wife and partner Tanya Udaval, who is a mortgage person with Belmore Mortgage, and we're very fortunate today. We've got Sachira Wimalaweera, sorry, Sachira, who's with us, who's an immigration consultant, and he's going to share with us a little bit about coming to Canada and what it took to become a Canadian and all the great things, because he does own some houses too, but a little bit about that. So, Sachira, can you share a little bit about your adventure of coming to Canada and becoming a Canadian?
Okay, thank you, Anthony, and thank you, Tanya, for this opportunity. And I'm so happy to connect with you both and to share my experience with people. What are the challenges I have faced when I'm coming to Canada? What are the challenges I face moving from one province to one city to another city? And also, what are the challenges I face when I'm becoming a permanent resident, Canadian citizens, and also buying a house? So, like Anthony explained, introduced, my name is Sachira. I am an immigration consultant. I'm working at Shim Law, Calgary. So, if I talk about the first experience that I face when I am coming to Canada, I'm originally from Sri Lanka. So when I want to move to another country for my higher studies, I had couple options. So I had New Zealand, Australia, UK, USA, Canada. So the main thing, the main criteria that I had when I'm moving to another country, the where that I can settle down. I mean, not to go to a country just to study and go back to Sri Lanka. The main thing was a country that I can settle down. So then the only country that I had that time, which easily can get the permanent residence and also become a Canadian citizen, not the, I mean, a citizen is Canada. So then that's how I moved to Canada. I'm happy about the journey that I came through so far. A lot of challenges, a lot of developments, a lot of changes. And so that's pretty much about the story. Yes, we'll talk about more. Yes, about all the challenges and the things I face.
So how long ago did you come here, Sachira? Like how many years
Uh,
ago?
yes, Tanya, I came on 2014. Actually, it's 2014 December. If I tell you the exact date, it was December 24th. It's exactly a
Wow.
day before the Christmas, and that was snowing, and I mean that was the first time I have seen snow, right? So I mean, like when I'm searching like about the weather and everything in Canada, I was like eagerly waiting to see snow because that was my first time. But yeah, that I came in 2014.
And
So
you
did you
chose, sorry.
so did you come here knowing anyone? Did you know anyone in Canada?
I had couple friends in Canada, like before I come. So I got a little few help because one of my friend came to pick me up from the airport. I originally came to Winnipeg. You both know about Winnipeg, so so they came to pick me up, and that was night. That was freezing cold. Yeah.
And so let me ask you something. So talking about Winnipeg, when you come to Canada, do they say, no, this is where you're going? Or were you able to say, I want to go and I pick of all of Canada, I'm going to pick Winnipeg as a place I want to go? Like, was this a choice you made, or did they say this is where you're going?
That's a choice I made because the thing is, I just wanted to start from somewhere which is not that crowded. I want to start from somewhere which is very easy to get the PR, a city where which is easy to settle down, regardless of the weather out there. Yeah, that was the reason I went to Winnipeg. Yeah.
And so you, to give a bit of history, you actually you're becoming a lawyer. You were a lawyer before in Sri Lanka. Can you share a little bit about your experience of studying over there and then coming over here and kind of starting all over?
Yes, it's a good question, Anthony. So when you're becoming a lawyer in Sri Lanka, so you have to study 3 years at we call the law school. We call the Law College of Sri Lanka. So you have to study 3 years over there. Once your 3 years is done, you have to work like 1 year as an articling student under a senior lawyer. I work under a senior lawyer. He is the president counsel right now, and also he is the president of by Association of Sri Lanka right now. His name is Mr. Sali Pires. So I work under him, as an articling student for 1 year. Then once I become a lawyer, I work 3 years under him as a junior counsel. I mainly practice in criminal, civil appeal, criminal appeals. And also the commercial codes as well before I'm moving to Canada. It was like almost like about 3 years and a 1 year articling. So it's going to be like about 4 year. You have to be in the law school before becoming a lawyer. It almost like 4 years.
Wow.
Yes. And also once you move to Canada, you have to do the challenging exams. We call the NCA exams, which are conducted by the Federation Law Societies of Canada. So based on your past academics, which country that you're coming from, and what are the subjects you have taken, and also the language that you have taken, based on that, they will be deciding how many subjects you have to do. So basically in Canada, there are out of 15 subjects you have to do, but out of 15, they're going to decide how many subjects you have to do. So basically I had to do 8 subjects, which I completed within 1 year. And also I had to take the IELTS as well. Mostly when you're doing the NCA, you have compulsory mandatory 5 subjects. So the extra subjects depends on where you're coming from. So for example, if you're coming from India, you're going to get just 5 subjects. So when I'm for me, they asked me to do 8 subjects. There are some students who coming from some other countries. They have to go through the law schools, which kind of longer process. So the other challenging thing actually I face when I'm studying in law school in Sri Lanka. Those are not the open book tests. Even the sections and the case laws and everything, you have to memorize it. So they give a question, they give a scenario, and you have to answer those. But the sections and everything, it should be in your mind. But when I come to Canada, when I was preparing for the exam, it was open book test. I was like, wow, it's going to be super easy. But then only I realized, no, open book test is really, really, really hard than the closed book test, because you don't have time to prepare the answers, because there's a lot of materials you have to bring, but you have to prepare the answers within about 3 hours. It's hard, but fortunately I couldn't pass all the exam from one sitting within a year. So it went all well.
Good for you. Good for you.
Thank you.
Tell me, what is probably the biggest barriers you faced coming to a new country?
The main thing was the people, because when you're in Sri Lanka, there's only the same people, same ethnicities. But when you come into a country like Canada, a multicultural country, there are different ethnicities, different nationalities, and also the weather you have never experienced it, right? And also you don't have your parents around. Right.
Yeah.
So if something happened, I can discuss with them. But and the other thing is the time difference. We have almost 12 and a half hour difference between Sri Lanka and here. So these gonna be the main changes. But I realized if you want to be success, you have to start from somewhere, regardless of challenges. Let's say, for example, I always take this as an example. Let's say that I do not know how to swim, but I fell into the water, but I do something to come up, right? So I'll do juggling. At least I'll be yelling, screaming, asking for help. So that's what I did, regardless of the challenges of you facing, thinking positively. Yeah, those are the challenges. But
That's a good.
it all went well. I'm happy about that. Yeah,
That's good. That's good, because you have a new family, a young family now. So you're setting roots, which makes it so much easier for your children. The sacrifices you made. So
Exactly.
tell me, what made you decide to get into immigration? What as kind of like your specialty or?
Yeah. Actually, Tanya, like when I'm at like when I was studying at University of Winnipeg, so I was studying criminal justice. I was helping all my friends to do their visa extension. I mean, I was not an immigration consultant that time. I was helping them their PR application. So I applied my PR, so then I know how to do the PR application. So even though I'm not an immigration consultant that time, I was helping them. I was helping them their visa extension. I was helping their student permit extension. I was helping them. I have a couple of I had a couple of my friends. Their kids and wives are in Sri Lanka, so I helped them to do their visa applications. So what I did was, since I didn't know anything, I went through the CIC website. Then I got to know all the information. Then I fill out the application. So then I helped them. Then I was thinking, okay, this is something I really, really like. Even though I do not have any academics about that, even though I do not have any experience about that, but I did pretty well with the application. I was thinking, okay, I felt like I discovered something like same like the law. Starting as an studying immigration, because I am also an immigrant. I also someone like who were keen to migrate to Canada back in 2014. So that was the main reason why I wanted to study immigration. At the same time, helping other people to become a permanent resident, become a Canadian citizen in Canada.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I have a question to ask you. Coming back to you going to Winnipeg, is it like somebody mentioned something about it, that in Canada to become a Canadian, you may have to go to a small town first. Is there something like if you don't, is there certain levels of qualifying that enables you to go to better places? Like, I mean, if you're going in and studying, you may be granted to go to a place like Winnipeg, but if you're new Canadian and you don't have much to offer, do they put you in, a small town up in northern Alberta or something, or how does that work?
Yes, Anthony. So when you come to the cities like the Winnipeg, because like compared to the other cities, because of the weather or different reasons, there's no much people. So the province want to keep the people. So in provinces like the Manitoba or cities like Winnipeg, they do have very easy pathways to become a Canadian PR.
They have an
Like
easier pathway?
exactly, very easier
Oh,
pathways. Because yeah, the people who come into Canada are temporary, who are coming on visit visa, they may be coming on work permit, they may be coming on student visa. They are temporarily in Canada, so they have the temporary permit. So their ultimate target is to become a permanent resident in Canada. So it's easy to choose a province or city like Winnipeg or Manitoba or Saskatchewan, or the provinces like the cities like the Atlantic provinces. It's very easy to get the PR. And also they have very different, immigration streams and very easy pathways. And they do not have very strict rules. So very easy and to become a Canadian PR. Yes,
oh, good
because
to
the
know.
main thing is the cities and the provinces want to keep the people. That's why they do have very, very easy rules become the
But
Canadian PR.
immigration is federal, correct? So
Yes,
does the provinces have their own? Mm, I
provincial
guess,
programs we call it.
okay.
Yeah,
So which
yeah.
one would be the easiest province? Someone looking like, I want to fast track this. What would you suggest? Like
Mhm.
where to start?
I would say the Manitoba is one
Okay.
province. Saskatchewan is
Interesting.
another province. The New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, PEI. Those are going to
Hmm.
be and also the Alberta also like kind of an easy province, but not like the other. I mean, a
Yeah.
little bit
Not like
harder
BC,
than
Toronto.
exactly. No, no, yeah, not like BC Toronto. It's really really hard. I think that's might be because I saw a news like a lot of people moving from those provinces uh, to Alberta
Yeah.
to settle down. Yes,
Yeah.
actually, a few of my friends actually they're coming on middle of December from Toronto to settle down
Yeah.
in Alberta.
Yeah. Not to be biased, but the other provinces, like let's say BC and Ontario, the standard of living is so high that there's just so much more opportunities. And again, I'm a bit biased in Alberta, Saskatchewan, like in the western part. So
Yeah,
What,
exactly.
what about like there's I assume that there's categories. If you're a general tradesman just coming over here and you don't really have any skills versus you're a lawyer or an engineer, is it easier in certain segments of the workforce to get into Canada and to get a permanent residency?
Yes, actually, Anthony, there are some job categories we call the skilled jobs, and also there are some job categories called the unskilled jobs. So right now, according to the Canadian immigration system, we call the knock codes. So there are 5 knock codes we call O, A, B, C, D. When it comes to knock O, A, B, we call as the skilled job. C and D we call as the unskilled jobs. Who has experience outside Canada on those job categories? Like they have very higher very easy stream to migrate to Canada. Some people, let's say for example, where we have a stream called express entry. When it comes to the express entry, there's one stream called federal skilled worker for people who are outside Canada, the skilled workers, to come to Canada, apply to Canada directly for the PR. They don't have to come as a student. They don't have to come as a visitor. They don't have to come on work permit. They can apply to Canada as a permanent residence. So people who has about 3 to 6 years working experience, who has good IELTS, overall 7, overall 8 in IELTS general, and also who can speak French, they can get higher marks, and also who has a job in that kind of a field, which is NOC OAB. There are a lot of jobs. There are a lot of jobs in those categories. So those people, and also they can migrate into Canada on PR, and also if they have their siblings, their brother, sister in Canada, they're getting more marks. If they have a LMIA based job offer, they're gonna get more marks. If they have any trade certificate inside Canada, they have done from outside Canada, they can get higher marks. So those people, they can apply to Canada on direct PR.
So
It's really
if you're applying for direct PR, how long would it take to actually get your PR? Is it like months or years or days, or do you?
Before COVID, it was like about 6 months. But right now, the processing time's been changing. Even recently, they announced the immigration minister about the processing time. Right now, it's gonna take an year. The processing time. Actually, the COVID time, there were people who already received the invitation for them. Like they were waiting almost about 2 years or 2.5 years to get their PR. But now the things are getting back to normal. The processing times are getting back to normal, and so right now the processing time for direct PR going to be about a year. That's for the direct PR we call the express entry stream. But let's say someone who applying through the provinces, like the Tanya asked, some provinces like Manitoba, they do have the provincial programs. But if they coming through the provinces, gonna take about 2 year or 2.5 year. Yes.
Are we finding more of a delay also because of what's happening in Ukraine and Afghanistan, or are they more of a specialized group because they're more like refugees, or is it like a different department, or is it under one?
Yes, I mean those going to be on the different departments. But the thing is, that still because of those Afghan refugees, because of those Syrian refugees, the immigration is really, really, really busy, and it affect to the other type of applications as well. Even though those are handled by the different departments. Obviously, Canada is a country they're giving priority for human rights. So regardless, where they when there's a war or kind of thing, and they give priority, and they're letting those people to settle down in Canada, which is which is good. I mean, it increase the multiculturalism in Canada. But on the other hand, it affect for the applications which are in the process too. So that's what happened with the other applications. Sometimes the application are like when it comes to processing time, we say like about a 12 months or 6 months is based on the 80% of cases decided in past how long it took. That's why we call the processing time 6 months or 12 months. But there are some applications sometimes drag more than expected. Like sometimes even though the processing time says 12 months, even sometimes some applications we waiting like almost 2 years, like 1.5 year we waiting a decision. So it affect. And also like sometimes when you want to get information from the immigration, one of a way that you can communicate with the immigration is putting in web form. Sometimes when you put send them a web form to give them new information or asking information, they're sending a reply email us saying that they're working on these refugee cases, so the process will be delayed, particular answer would be delayed, but we have received your inquiry. So like that. Yes, it
Okay.
goes to the both ways. Yeah.
So we chatted about the five tiers on like you said, unskilled to skilled workers. What would make an application get declined?
Yeah, so it depends on, let's say for example, you like every country have their own immigration system. People who goes with that immigration system, they're gonna be approved. People who do not go with the system, they will be declined. Let's say for example, a client create an extra-centric profile. It's same like you creating your Facebook profile. You put your name, your birthday, your IELTS score, your employment, and those all the information. Based on that profile you have created, you're going to receive an invitation to apply. But when that person uploading the documents are like not going to go with the informations that you have provided. Those are not accurate. So if that happen, the immigration officer can refuse visa.
Oh,
Let's say, yeah. So I mean, same like the people applying, there are higher rate in the in refusals as well, because Canada is a country is hard to come, unlike the other countries. The reason why, there are many ways you can get your PR when you enter from the airport. You can be a permanent resident, you can become a Canadian citizen. But there are some countries, for example, you get UK, Australia, very easy to go, but you cannot settle down in those countries. I mean, I would say not. I would say the impossible. Like it's very very hard. Sometimes it's gonna take very long, like 10 years. Some people 15 years they have to wait.
oh,
Yeah, it's a lot. And also the staying in a country like as a temporary residence for 10-15 years, if the immigration rules changes all the time. But countries like Canada, immigration rules change, but in a way good for the immigrants, not in a way bad for the immigrants. But some
yeah.
countries, they have very strict rules. They're changing the rules. Sometimes going to negatively affect for many immigrants who are on temporary visas. But Canada is not like that so far.
Do you have to be sponsored when you come to Canada?
There are some streams, Tanya. For example, let's say, for example, you have a permanent residence. He married to a foreign national, right? And he want to bring his wife to Canada. You have a program called spousal sponsorship. Let's say that you are a permanent resident or a Canadian citizen. You need to bring your parents, your grandparents to Canada. You have the parent grandparent sponsorship. There are sponsorship programs. Once you let's say someone bring to Canada on sponsorship, you have to do an undertaking. Let's say, for example, you bring your parents, you have to do an undertaking for 10 years. You bring your spouse to Canada, you need to do an undertaking for 3 years. So when you're sponsored, it's going to be like that. But there are sponsorships program in place in the Canadian immigration system.
Wow, a lot to know. That's why you need someone like you, because it's very hard to navigate. Because I think I know a few, but it's too much. Because you're right. You could be a PR, you could be a temporary foreign worker, you can be a student. Now you had mentioned that once you do have your PR, it is quite easy to get your Canadian citizenship. Is that correct?
Exactly. The hardest part is, Tanya, to become a permanent resident. because you're coming as a temporary residence, and hardest part is become a permanent residence. But compared to the other countries, easy. There are various streams available, not just one stream. There are various streams. Once you become a permanent resident, it's easy to become a Canadian citizen. You have to stay based on the way that you migrate to Canada, 2 years or 3 years inside Canada. So once you inside Canada, then you can apply for the Canadian citizen. When you apply for the permanent residence, there is a language requirement to fulfill. But sometimes when you apply for Canadian citizen, there is a language requirement. Let's say you don't have to do the IELTS again. So let's say, for example, you can use your degree certificate. And also, and when it comes to IELTS, it valid just for 2 years. But citizenship application is the only application that you can use expired IELTS score to apply to the Canadian citizen. And the processing time, earlier it was like about 12 months. Now, like we discussed, it has been dragged for 2 years right now.
Yeah, COVID.
So can I ask you this? If you're Canadian and you want to be a permanent resident, is it better to just stay in one place, or would it be okay to travel around? Is it better to sort of have one job, or would it be better to be like an entrepreneur, start your own business? Does that play a role in anything, being nomadic or being kind of not employed?
Yeah, and then next thing, so you can move to any province you want once you become a permanent resident.
No, before you're a permanent resident. So what I mean is, before you become a permanent resident, like, what's the role of being in one place?
Temporary.
Can you travel as a non-permanent resident, or is it better to just stay in one place and have one job?
No, you can change the job. You can change the job anytime. But let's say, for example, someone come as a student. That person apply for an express entry, or that person apply for the provincial nominee program. It's advisable to stay in the same job till the time they get their PR. But once you get your PR, definitely you can move to any other provinces. Definitely that you can change your job. So it has it does not gonna hinder you away from getting your Canadian citizens. As long as you're working, as long as you inside Canada, regardless of the province, you are inside Canada during that time period. There are some exceptions, let's say, for example, you work for a Canadian company in Ukraine, for example. Still you were away from Canada. That's why there are some exceptions that are mentioned in the Act and the regulations, that you still be becoming a Canadian citizen. But mostly when you're inside Canada, whatever the job that you're doing, and also that regardless of the job category that you are in, you don't have to be in NOC O, A, B, O, C, D. That's fine. You can be a Canadian citizen. But when you become a permanent resident, but from a temporary residence to the permanent residence, the job you're doing is really important. And the same question that the Tanya asked, the most provinces are okay to the most provinces, when you are in temporary residence, you need to do a job in NOC OAB. But for example, countries like the Atlantic provinces, there's a program called Atlantic Immigration Program. Even though you do a NOC-C job, which is kind of a low unskilled job, I would say, still you can get the PR. So there are some provinces, based on that province, there are easy pathway, to become permanent residents. But the job that you're doing is really important till the time you get your permanent residence.
That's good to know, because we had a client, and he was I think not a PR, a non-permanent, and he was a contractor. But then he was told, again, it's unless you don't know how to navigate this, that he needs to be employed by an employer and not be a contractor where he remits his own CPP EI. Is that true? Was he kind of on the right path with that, or?
Yeah, because basically mainly the job category you're doing is really, really, really important. I mean, that's what the immigration officers say. Whether you are economically valuable to the country. If you are economically valuable, then they're gonna keep you. If you are not economically valuable, then they have to find the other way. So going to back home.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that's good to know. Like, we take things for granted because I know Anthony and I, our parents were immigrants here. And so when you are born in Canada, it's you really don't know the struggles. But to come to a new country, it takes like it's incredible. The customs, languages. I would say like culturally trying to assimilate into the Canadian culture. Like we're very much of a salad bowl
That's really
country. Which we're very blessed, but we definitely take for granted how easy things do come to us.
Exactly.
So it's admirable. So now you've got a pretty like incredible story to tell because you're actually like you own multiple real estate. Am I correct with that? You have
Yes, exactly. Yes.
How many homes do you?
Yeah. So actually, I own 3 houses right now.
Wow.
So I rent 2 properties, and the other property that that I'm living right now. Yeah, I mean it's good. Like the thing is, like it was quite challenging. So Anthony and Tanya know more than myself about
Yeah.
about the challenges you meet when you're buying a house. Yeah. If I tell you about like few mistakes actually I have done, like when I am
Yeah, love to hear that.
yeah, when I was a student. So when I'm in back home, I do not use much credit cards. So then when I come to Canada, wherever you go, they offer you the credit cards. I know my dad had a credit card, right, and I never use, right, and those money is not yours, right. So then because of that, you can purchase anything you want. You go to Walmart, they're gonna offer you a credit card. Okay, yeah, give me, like when I was a student, you go to like like other places, so then they're gonna offer you. So once you get the credit card, you always think first few months you're gonna pay off within 21 days, but with the time being you forget to pay. But when you
Yeah.
come to buy a house only, you realize, oh my god, your credit is not that good. Then only realize how important a credit, same like you becoming a permanent resident, same like you become a Canadian citizen, buying a house also really really important. I mean, no one want to stay at a place just keep just paying the rent, right? So you need to have a place your own. You love to do decoration in the house, you do not want to get the permission from your landlord, right?
Yeah.
If you want to cut grass, if you want to plant something, you do not want to take permission from your landlord. That so that you need that comfort, you need that freedom, you need to feel that house like your own, right? Then when you have that feeling, then you're going to buy a house. Then only you're going to realize the mistakes you have done in the past, which not knowing, right, not knowing the people like you, like Anthony and Tanya, like you guys. Let's say for example, if I know when I come to Canada the people like you guys, then I could have then the people like you guys can tell Sachira, don't do that, don't buy the credit card.
Mm.
I mean, don't get the credit cards like this, or like the like follow like this. Okay, your plan is to buy a house, like let's say like 1 or 1.5 year later. Okay, so then we'll work on, and by the time, then you don't have to go through the like hard time to getting your mortgage approval, your pre-mortgage approval, right? So when I'm buying, when I want to buy a house, my credit was not good because I had couple credit cards. So then I had to pay those off, bringing money from back home. So then after that, build my credit, and then I purchased the first house. So then it went well. Then my mortgage was approved. I was so happy. Oh my god, I was so exciting. And then we were going every day to that house because that was the first time, right? So then it took like once you get your mortgage approved, it took like about a 1 month for the closing. Me and my wife, we going there every day to see that house. You know that you cannot go to that house, and after a month you're gonna own that house, and that's something, there's something you can eat but you cannot eat. So it kind of that kind of a feeling. So we go, and then we were staying outside. We're looking at the house. Then we're gonna then we were coming to the same house that we were renting. So then so that was about the first house. Then I was like staying like about another like about 1 year, like, yeah, 6 months or 1 year. Then I bought another house. It's a
Wow.
then I rented out. Then I did some couple renovations. Then I rented out that house. Then I moved to the townhouse. The first house I bought, it kind of very old house. Like I do not want to use the word old, because it was real nice, but it built on like 1980s. So then the next house I moved is built. Then I was thinking, okay, no, I want to go to a new house. I need to feel that, the modern the appliances and all. Then I moved to a house which is built on 2016. So it was a townhouse. Then I was thinking, like, I was waiting, and the others houses are attached, and you can see the other people, like, talking, the dogs are barking. I was like, no, I want to go to a detached house. Then after like about 1.5, yeah, so then I moved to a detached house. So now I'm living in Cranston. So then, and the thing is, since I bought the houses, I do not want to sell those houses, because what I realized is, in the Calgary market, unlike the Toronto, when you own a house, there's not going to be a huge difference when you're selling. So that's why I was decided. Okay, I would rent those houses. I still keep those houses, because you have memories in those houses. So keep those houses, rent those houses. Then I'm living in the one house. So that
That's
was the story. But the main thing is, I did not have the guidance from, like, the team like you guys from the beginning. So if I had that, I would have buy more houses by now.
Well,
Well, I think that's an interesting. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Anthony.
no, I was just going to point out one thing, and that was, you talked a little bit about credit, and I just want to touch on it a little bit more, because one thing that we see a lot, and this is the biggest problem we have, is people go out and get a car. And the cars are absolutely, I hate to say it, we all want to have a nice car, but they're the worst investment, because they but you're paying it, it's only $300 every 2 weeks. And a lot of people, their debt ratio gets blown up because they bought a car. And ultimately, Tanya could talk more about it, but if you can delay that car purchase till after you own a home, you're in so much better of a place. So I just wanted to bring that up to anybody who's listening, because that's a huge.
Well, it's interesting, 'cause exactly what you say. We are very much of a debt, all about credit cards and debt. So those coming new to our country, they don't understand that, and we're like, no, credit is good, and in their country, no, credit is bad, or it doesn't exist. And we had a guy that came into Canada, and he got credit cards, blew out his credit, but he left. And a couple of years later, he came back. He's not a Canadian, and he was shocked that it was all the bad debt from the past was still on his credit bureau. He thought that if he left the country, it would be wiped off, and that he can come back fresh, right? He thought it would be gone. So you're still right about that. It's the education about you having credit card, but managing it well. Because I hate to say it, in order to get a mortgage in Canada, they do like to see that you have debt, which is sad, because just like in China, there's no debt. Like you don't have credit cards.
So can I ask you a question? So do they actually give you like training on credit? Like, do they offer that as a new Canadian? They go, let me explain to you how this works. And do they actually sit down and explain to you about what credit is and how that works? Or do they sort of say, well, welcome to Canada and good luck dealing with all this stuff?
No, Anthony, that's kind of a bad thing. That's something, as the mortgage brokers and as the realtors, those team, the teams like you guys need to play. I believe I don't think personally, I haven't received that education.
So there's a need.
Exactly, because when you want to buy a house, then only you're gonna do research. Then you're gonna receive multiple advices from different people. And also, one time when I'm talking to Anthony, One time he also told me one of his client received bad advices from a different realtor. So it should be the the team like you guys. In the same way, when it comes to the immigration, becoming a permanent residents, Canadian citizens need to have the advice from the like a proper team, like the same way that us the Shim Law has. The same way, like when it comes to buying a house, when they're planning, right, they have to plan a little bit ahead. If you want to buy a house, you cannot buy a house tomorrow. You cannot do like that. You have to be like have a better plan, and also the better education. There's something the Anthony and the Tanya like say, like you guys team should play, like education, like about the people who want to buy the houses, because there are a lot of people outside, like out there, like they're doing a good job. They have a a good livelihood, but the thing is good income, but they do not have that guidance to how what going to be the first step to to buy a house. It's not like just having a feeling you need to have a house. You need to have that guidance as well. These
Yeah.
two should be goes together to success and get the mortgage approval.
Can I just ask one more question? I know we've talked about credit and stuff, but I really wonder, does a government look at your credit when they want to decide if you can become a permanent resident? Do they say, well, let's see what your credit's like as well? Do they look at like your credit, your criminal record, all those kind of things? Like how deep do they look at those things? Does that play a big role?
No, Anthony, they don't. They don't check. When you're applying to, let's say for example, someone applying to become a permanent resident from outside Canada, there are a set of money need to have in your account based on the family size. We call the settlement of funds. But if you applying for a permanent residence inside Canada, coming a student or coming up temporary foreign worker, they don't check your credit. They check how much of money need to have, how much of money in your account, because you have to submit their last 3 months, last 2 months bank statements. So like that, but they don't check credit. They don't check credit at all.
Sachira, I'm not sure if you would know, because it's usually a mortgage broker thing, but do you know if you got your mortgage through the New Canada mortgage program, or you?
No. I mean, you're asking about whether there are kind of a programs like that?
No, did your I don't know if you went through a bank or a broker, but were you Canadian by the time you got a mortgage? A Canadian?
No, I was a permanent resident that time.
Okay.
I believe you need to be a permanent resident in order to purchase a house. That's my understanding. Because
You can actually be a non-permanent as well. So,
so
I know it's a New to Canada program, and it's complicated. It's actually one of my favorite mortgage programs because they're quite lenient. So I think they know the importance of setting roots in Canada, because once you set roots, it becomes your home. So yeah, again, it's about, as you say, there's a lot to navigate with immigration. Like, you want to do your application right, otherwise you can be waiting a few more years, which totally sucks. And even for the mortgage and real estate side, there's so much to navigate. So yeah, so you can as a non-permanent. Is it tougher? Not really. It's not tougher, but it's different criterias.
Yeah, see, unless this podcast happening, I didn't know that.
Yes,
I mean,
there you go.
right, see, I mean, I didn't know once you on as a temporary residence, you can purchase a house.
Yeah.
What my understanding, even till this moment, you need to be a permanent resident. I know, like, you can buy a car, like same way that Anthony said, as a student, or like as a temporary, like foreign worker, or like when they're on temporary foreign work permit, or as a student, they can purchase a car. Because I did the same mistake that Anthony said, even though I couldn't edit that. For the mistake that I have done before I purchase a house, but I didn't know that you, even though you are a non-Canadian or non-permanent residents, you can still purchase a house. Good to know. It's good for the people who are listening too.
Yeah, just like you said, once you have your PR, it's pretty easy to get you Canadian. Just like a mortgage, once you're PR, they treat the mortgages just like a Canadian. But the non-permanent, they do have its own special mortgage program. But it's again, it's the education and getting it out there. So That's good. But you're like the all Canadian dream. Like, who would not want to be where you're at?
That's
Absolutely.
really true. That's really true. Because the same like you becoming a Canadian, the same like you becoming a permanent resident, same like they're dreaming to settle down in Canada. They need to settle down with a house. They need to settle down like with their own vehicle. But the thing is, we do not know. I mean, what is the order? Right, so
Yeah.
the like some people like me, they purchase a brand new car before buying a house. Then only you're gonna realize, no, it should goes the other way around. You
Yeah.
should buy a house. If you want a vehicle, just go for a then the used vehicle, which I didn't know that time. Right, then you buy a vehicle, buy a house, then you buy a, if you want to buy a brand new car, then after that.
Yeah.
Right?
But if you're in Winnipeg, you might need a car because it's so cold that the bus won't work.
You need a car.
I
You
mean,
need
if our buses were not in service, so but no,
exactly.
for sure, it's always hard because it's yeah, to figure that part out.
Exactly.
But
Yes.
sure, is there anything you want to say to kind of close this? Anything you want to for
Yeah.
anyone out there?
Exactly. So basically, so when you like we discussed from the beginning, like I like when I like sharing my experience, those are the main challenges actually, that I face before I come into Canada. When I come to Canada, once I landed, and my journey to become a permanent resident and a Canadian citizen. So basically, as Shim Law, we can definitely help these temporary residents to get their permanent residence, whatever the streams that they have came to Canada through. They maybe come to Canada as a visitor visa. They came to Canada as the worker. They came to Canada as a student. Yes, we can definitely help them to become a Canadian citizen, and also most important, to become a permanent resident.
Yeah.
And then till this down the road, for them to have a house. Same way that same thing that I learned from Tanya. At the same time, you becoming a permanent resident. At the same time, you can own a house as well.
Yeah.
Right. So this is how that the Tanya and Anthony and also Shim Law can help
Yeah.
these people.
All together we're gonna streamline the process of coming into Canada, getting your Canadian citizen, and then we'll help you set the roots in Canada. So it's good.
Exactly.
So Shim Law, SHIM Law. That's
Exactly.
thank
And
you.
also another advantage is that we have 15-20 lawyers that who are working with us. They came from different ethnicities. We have almost the lawyers we are speaking like I believe mostly over 20 languages we are speaking. So it doesn't matter whatever the nationality that you coming from, we can definitely help you out even during your these clients this mortgage, what you call this real estate transaction,
Yeah.
that they're like this down the road. So that our lawyers in Shim Law, they also can help you out, and definitely we can help them as a team in the future.
That's
Awesome.
perfect. That's so good. Okay, well, Sachira, thank you so much for coming on this beautiful cold day. But we really appreciate it. I'll
Thank
put
you.
your contact in, I think I can do it on the message box afterwards. So I'll do that after.
Perfect. And thank you, Tanya. Thank you, Anthony. Thank you so much for inviting me and saying. And I thank you for both on behalf of Shim Law, and thank you, and have a wonderful rest of the day.
You
Perfect.
too. All right.
Good stuff.
We're gonna,
All right.
bye,
Thanks,
everyone.
guys.
Okay. Take
Yeah.
care, guys. Thank you.